I've been a practicing psychologist for over 40 years. I've sat across from thousands of people, men and women in their 70s, their 80s, and listened to them talk about the thing that hurts them most. It's not their health. It's not money. It's not even the fear of dying. It's their children. A few years ago, a man came into my office. 74 years old. Retired engineer. Strong hands. Proud man. He sat down, looked at the floor and said, "Doc, I think my son hates me." So I asked him, "What makes you think that?" He said, "He never calls. When he does, it lasts 3 minutes. He didn't come for Thanksgiving. And last Christmas, he mailed a gift card." So I asked his son to come in. And what that young man told me, it broke something open. He said, "I don't hate my father. I stopped hating him a long time ago. I just stopped trying." And there it is. In 40 years of practice, the saddest thing I've seen is not a parent who was hated by their children. It's a parent who was simply given up on. Today I want to share with you 7 things that most parents don't realize about their children until it's almost too late. I'm not here to blame you. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here because I believe that if you're watching this, you still care. And if you still care, there may still be time, but not much. Let's begin. Here's something that might surprise you. Your children are not honest with you. They haven't been for a long time. And it's not because they're dishonest people. It's because somewhere along the way, they learned that telling you the truth came with a cost. Think about it. When your daughter told you she was struggling in her marriage, what did you do? Did you listen? Or did you launch into a lecture about how she should have married someone else? When your son mentioned he was thinking about changing careers, did you ask him what excited him about it? Or did you tell him he was being irresponsible? In psychology, we call this emotional editing. Your children learn to edit themselves before they speak to you. They run every sentence through a filter. If I say this, will mom worry? Will dad judge me? Will it turn into an argument? So instead they say, "Everything's fine." And you believe them. Because it's easier. Here's how you know this is happening. The calls get shorter. The conversations stay on the surface. Weather, sports, what's for dinner. They never mention struggles, fears, or failures. They've turned you into an acquaintance. And the worst part? They didn't do this overnight. It happened slowly, one conversation at a time, over years. Each time they opened up and felt shut down, they closed a door. After enough doors closed, they stopped knocking altogether. If your children only tell you good news, that's not a sign that their life is perfect. It's a sign that they've stopped trusting you with the messy parts. And the messy parts are where real love lives. This one is hard to hear. I know it is. But it's important. Many parents carry a belief that sounds like this. I raised you. I sacrificed for you. I gave up my dreams so you could have yours. You owe me. And I understand why you feel that way. You did sacrifice. You did work hard. Nobody is denying that. But here's the truth that 40 years of psychology has taught me. Love between adults is not a debt. It's a choice. Every single day, your adult children choose whether to call you, visit you, or let you into their lives. And they make that choice based on one thing, how it feels to be around you. Not how much you spent on them. Not how many hours you worked. Not what you gave up. How it feels. I once worked with 2 families. In the first family, the mother reminded her children constantly about her sacrifices. "After everything I've done for you," she'd say. Her children came for holidays, out of guilt. They sat at the table, watched the clock, and left as soon as they could. In the second family, the mother never mentioned her sacrifices. She just asked her children about their lives and genuinely listened. Her children came because they wanted to. They stayed late. They brought their own children. Same holiday. 2 completely different experiences. The difference wasn't love. Both mothers loved their children. The difference was whether the children felt free. When your child visits out of obligation, you can feel it. The energy is different. The hugs are shorter. The eyes are somewhere else. But when they visit because they choose to, that's the real thing. And you can't buy it, earn it, or guilt someone into it. Let me ask you something. When your child makes a decision about their career, their partner, their parenting, their lifestyle, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? If you're honest, it's probably something like, I know better. I've been through this. Let me save them the trouble. And your intentions are good. They really are. You want to protect your child from pain. But here's what your child hears when you give unsolicited advice. I don't trust you to handle your own life. That's not what you mean. But that's what lands. I had a patient once, 68 years old, a wonderful woman, who couldn't understand why her adult daughter only called once a month. So I asked her, when your daughter tells you about a problem, what do you do? She said, I help her. I tell her what she should do. I said, every time? She paused. Yes. I said, did she ask for your advice? Silence. There is a world of difference between guidance and control. And the line between them is often just one question. Do you want my opinion, or do you just need me to listen? That one question can change everything. Because when you ask it, you're telling your child, I respect you as an adult. I trust you to run your own life, and I'm here if you need me, but only if you need me. Most parents never ask that question. They just talk. And their children learn to stop sharing. This might be the most important point in this video. So please listen carefully. You and your children do not remember the same childhood. You remember working 60 hours a week to put food on the table. You remember driving them to school, to practice, to the doctor. You remember the birthday parties, the Christmas mornings, the family vacations. Your child remembers the night you screamed at them for spilling juice on the carpet. They remember the time you said their drawing was messy. They remember being compared to their cousin who got better grades. This isn't because your children are ungrateful. It's because of something we call negativity bias in childhood memory. The human brain, especially a child's brain, is wired to remember painful experiences 3 to 5 times more vividly than positive ones. It's a survival mechanism. The brain says, remember what hurt you so you can avoid it next time. So while you carry a highlight reel of your sacrifices, your child carries a collection of wounds. And both of you are telling the truth. Both memories are real. But they're not the same story. I once sat with a father who told me, I worked 3 jobs so my kids could have everything. And in a separate session, his daughter told me, my father was never home. I don't remember what his voice sounds like from my childhood. I just remember the sound of the door closing. He gave her everything except himself. And she would have traded all of it. The nice house, the good school, the vacations, for one real conversation at the kitchen table. You don't get to decide which memories your children keep, but you can acknowledge that their memories are valid, even when they don't match yours. That acknowledgement alone can begin to heal 30 years of distance. No parent wants to admit this, and almost every parent will deny it if asked. But the research is clear. Studies in family psychology show that the vast majority of parents do have a child they feel closer to, a child they understand more easily, a child whose personality meshes with their own. That's natural. It's human. The problem is that nearly every parent believes they hide it well. And nearly every child sees right through it. It shows up in small ways. Whose phone call do you return first? Whose opinion do you value more? Whose life choices do you question, and whose do you praise? Who do you talk about more when speaking to friends? Children notice everything. They notice who gets the warmer tone of voice. They notice who gets asked more questions. They notice whose photo is on the mantle and whose is on the side table. And the child who felt like they were loved less, they didn't just feel sad. They internalized a message that echoed through their entire life. I am not enough. That's not what you intended. I know that. But intention and impact are 2 very different things. If one of your children is more distant than the other, before you label them as the difficult one, ask yourself honestly, is it possible they felt like the lesser one growing up? I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying this because understanding is the first step toward repair. And repair is still possible, if you're willing to see what they saw. This one hits hard for the men especially, but it applies to many mothers too. If you grew up in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, you were raised with a very specific belief about what it means to be a good parent. A good parent provides. A good parent works hard. A good parent puts a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back. And you did that. Many of you did that beautifully. But here's what your generation wasn't taught. Providing is not the same as connecting. Your children didn't need a bigger house. They needed you to sit on the floor and play with them. They didn't need a better school. They needed you to ask how their day was and actually listen to the answer. They didn't need more money. They needed to hear you say, "I'm proud of you." Not for what you achieved, just for who you are. In my 40 years of practice, do you know what the most common sentence I hear from adult children is? It's not, "My parents didn't give me enough." It's, "My parents never really knew me." That's the wound. Not poverty, not hardship, invisibility. One man I worked with, successful, wealthy, everything you'd call a good life, sat in my office and said something I'll never forget. He said, "My father gave me everything money could buy, but I would have traded all of it, every dollar, every gift, every vacation, for one moment where he looked me in the eye and said, 'Tell me what's on your mind, son.'" If you are watching this right now and you can still pick up the phone, don't call to give advice. Don't call to complain about your health. Don't call to remind them of what you did for them. Call to ask one question, "How are you?" And I mean really, how are you? Then close your mouth and listen. If you've made it this far, I want you to know something. You are not a bad parent. You did the best you could with what you knew. You carried wounds from your own childhood that nobody helped you heal. You raised your children in a world that didn't teach emotional intelligence. You followed the playbook you were given, and now you're learning that some pages were missing. That doesn't make you a failure. That makes you human. But I'm going to be honest with you, because that's what I've done for 40 years. Not every relationship can be repaired. Some children have drawn boundaries that are firm, and those boundaries deserve respect. Some wounds are too deep, and healing may not look the way you imagined. However, many relationships are not broken. They're just frozen. They're waiting. And in most cases, they're waiting for the parent to make the first move. Why the parent? Because you have less time. And because the person with less time is the one who has the least to lose by being vulnerable. So here's what I want you to do. 3 things. Not 7. Not 10. Just 3. First, call your child this week. Not to advise. Not to update them on your doctor visit. Call to ask about their life. Ask one question and then listen for as long as they want to talk. If they only talk for 2 minutes, that's okay. You showed up. Do it again next week. Second, say these words. And I mean exactly these words. "I don't think I was always the parent you needed, and I'm sorry." Then stop. Don't add but. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just let the words sit there. Give your child space to respond, or not respond. Both are okay. Third, accept that the relationship you build now may not look like the one you dreamed of. Your daughter may never be your best friend. Your son may never call every day. But a real conversation once a month is worth more than a forced dinner every Sunday. Quality is not quantity. Connection is not control. You might be thinking, what if I do all this and nothing changes? That's possible. But at least you'll know you tried. And there is peace in that. But here's what I've seen far more often. When a parent steps forward with genuine humility, something shifts. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not dramatically. But something opens. A door that was locked. It unlocks. I want to go back to where we started. That 74-year-old man who sat in my office and said, "My son hates me." After 6 months of working together, he made a decision. He called his son, not to lecture, not to guilt, not to complain. He just said, "I don't need anything. I just wanted to hear your voice." There was silence on the other end. 10 seconds, maybe 15. The kind of silence that feels like a lifetime. And then his son said, "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." 7 words. That's all it was. 7 words. But that man told me it was the best moment of his entire life. Better than his wedding. Better than his retirement. Better than any award he ever earned. 7 words from his son, because he finally said the right 6 words first. "I just wanted to hear your voice." If you're watching this right now, and you're thinking about your own children, don't just watch. Don't just nod. Don't save this video and forget about it. Do something. The window is still open. But it won't be open forever. None of us get forever. Pick up the phone. Write the letter. Send the message. Say the thing you've been too proud to say. Because in the end, the only thing worse than realizing these 7 truths too late is realizing them right now and still doing nothing. Thank you for watching. If this spoke to you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Strong Elderly Life, because growing older doesn't mean growing apart. It means learning to grow closer, one honest conversation at a time. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself, and take care of the people who matter most.